All right, let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of news flying around Pittsburgh these days, dealing with the most important position on the field. Of course, we're talking the quarterback position. There's some reason for consternation going on in the media with Steelers fans and what's going on in the latest reports. But there's actually a really deeper insight here and a really smart move by Pittsburgh that no one's really talking about. We'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, about a day ago, news broke on Fox Sports 1 that really just sent the entire NFL world and really Steelers fan base into just an absolute tizzy. It was Colin Cowherd talking on his show about a connection he had within the Steelers organization, specifically an executive. Let's pull up a tweet here. This is Andrew Filipponi, who's a longtime Steelers reporter, Steelers just internet guy, all very, very plugged in to everything going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He said, and this is on the screen in front of you, Colin Cowherd says he's heard the Steelers like Jalen Milroe so much they could take him in the first round. That would be a total disaster. Now, Jalen Milroe, by all accounts, is rated basically as a third-round prospect. He has some first-round skills, but most people would be very surprised if he snuck into the second round. Some people are actually expecting him to slide deeper into the fourth round because just the way the draft is working, his overall skill set. So the fact that the Steelers reportedly, according to Colin Cowherd, from an executive, are really in love with Milroe and they'd be okay with taking him in the first round, is that the truth? Is that reality? The answer is absolutely not. This is a clear and obvious move. This is a leaked story by a Steelers executive using Colin Cowherd to force one guy in particular, and that's Aaron Rodgers, to make a decision, to hurry up, right? They've obviously met. Their reports, the meetings went well and things are going in a good direction, but Rodgers is taking his sweet time. And right now, the Steelers, Omar Khan, Tomlin, the whole gang are sitting there like, listen, dude, you got to make a decision. We've got to build a team. We got to figure out the kind of roster we need, the structure we need. You know, the draft is getting closer. What kind of players are we going to draft in the fold? What other trades are we going to make? We can't sit here and wait around for days, weeks, months for you to make a decision. You could end up retiring tomorrow. You could retire 4 months from now. We can't wait that long. So tell you what, we're going to leak a message that we're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, no matter what. Even if it's Jalen Milroe, we'll draft a quarterback. So if you want to come here and be the starter, guess what? You got to decide right now. This is what the Steelers are doing. It's obvious. There's a big freak out, and people, oh my God, are the Steelers really going to take Jalen Milroe? You saw Filipponi's comments. That would be a disaster. The answer is they're not going to take Jalen Milroe in the first round. Maybe the third, definitely not the first. This is a clear message to Aaron Rodgers, and it's a smart move using the media to kind of push Rodgers, who is, as much as he likes to hide it and ignore it, he is deeply plugged into the media. He watches all this stuff because he always tends to respond to it. He's going to hear this. He's going to see this. And when I say hear this, he's going to hear Colin Cowherd's comments. He's going to hear the reaction. And I guarantee you he's going to speed up his timeline. This is just a solid, just using the media move by Omar Khan in the Steelers front office. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Pittsburgh fans in the comment section below. Now that you've heard our rationale, look, this is the truth. We're not making this up. This is just the reality. If you've been around big corporations long enough, you see this kind of thing happen all the time. We've seen this happen in the NFL a number of times. Now that we know that Jalen Milroe will not be drafted in the first round by the Pittsburgh Steelers, let me ask you this. Let's say they sign Aaron Rodgers, right, and he becomes a starter. Do you want the Steelers to draft a quarterback in the later rounds of this upcoming draft? And if so, who? Let us know in the comment section below. But Miles, what are your thoughts on this latest situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers and just everything going on with the quarterback position for the Steelers right now?
Yeah, Nick, I'll say first of all, like let's not get our words misconstrued. We like Jalen Milroe. I think he's a pretty
Yeah,
interesting player. Not in the first round, not by
no,
any
absolutely not.
means. Like that's not the case here. But so first of all, Pittsburgh fans, if you do end up drafting Jalen Milroe in like late second, early third round, somewhere around that time, that would be a pretty good move. I think it'd be interesting to see. So, but it's not the first round. I agree with you, Nick. I think here the deal is you see Rodgers right now, he has like a month where he's not in any hurry. Once the draft is like a week or so away, or really once the draft has passed, now he loses all of his leverage because the team would probably move on and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to the draft, but forget it. No deal on the table anymore. We're just going to go, put our eggs in that basket. But right now, Rodgers has a lot of leverage for being able to not do anything. All the other major quarterbacks are off the market. Everybody's just kind of waiting to see what he's going to do. So I think this is a really smart move by, we said it, the draft is the timeline for Aaron Rodgers. Once the draft gets very close or passes, that's when Aaron Rodgers is on the hot seat of, I got to make a decision. So for the Steelers to come out here early and just say, okay, we're gonna bring that draft timeline closer, get his feet to the fire. I think it's really interesting because you mentioned they've already talked, and I have an article here that I want to bring up and talk about. The talks did go good. I think in principle, everything seems really good for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Rodgers is trying to figure out where his ideal fit is right now. And you see here it says on Jim Rome's show on Thursday, NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, good reporter as well, very plugged in, said the terms of the proposed contract between the two have been worked out. They've discussed the parameters. It's not going to be a financial issue for Aaron Rodgers, per Pelissero told Rome. If it gets done, it's going to be a 1 year deal. Pelissero said the line of communication between Rodgers and the Steelers has remained open. The parties have had a healthy dialogue, but they're in a holding pattern. So I think that just goes to show Steelers, Rodgers, they know what the general deal is going to look like. They know what the structure is. Maybe there's a few dollars and cents that have to be moved around, but for the most part, they know what it's going to look like. Now it's just Rodgers saying, okay, I see what you got to offer. There's maybe like two other options out there for me. Maybe the Venezuela Vikings, who don't seem to be very interested in me, or maybe I'll just retire. But now they're saying, okay, we're going to put your feet to the fire. We need a decision because I think this is a smart move for Pittsburgh. They need to be able to prepare themselves for the draft. I think this is showing they aren't going to wait around for Rodgers. So if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm happy about that because this is a team that's beholden to no one. You can either make the deal or not, or else they're going to move on without you. I think this is a really smart move by the front office, continuing a trend they've had this offseason.
Yeah, this is sort of the Steelers saying, "We're not the New York Jets, man. They're like, we're not going to just sit around and beg you to come here just to save us, right?" As much as we talking for the Steelers here, as much as we'd like to have Rodgers here, we got Mason Rudolph. We know he can be at least a capable starter in the short term. We'll draft a Milrow with our third round pick, for example, and then we'll just move on with our lives. Milrow or Jackson Dart or whomever will be our future. Rudolph will be our temporary present, and we'll just move on, right? We'd love to have you here. We got a plan in place. We'd like you. We don't need you. And I think that's what the Steelers are sending here. And this is a guy in Aaron Rodgers who I think really has, especially what happened with the Jets and everything like that, really I think has gotten a little bit over his skis a little bit in terms of the demand for him. I think he still can play at an extremely high level. The Jets are just total dysfunction. But I think he still thinks his demand is as if it's the 2021, just after the 2021 season where he won the MVP for like the third time in his career. And he was just lighting everything up. It's not the same NFL. He's not the same Aaron Rodgers. I think the Steelers are doing a good job here reminding him of that, and they're not doing it in a way to blow up a deal. Inexperienced negotiators, poor negotiators, and anyone who's been on an interview, trust me, you guys have experienced exactly what I'm about to say. A guy who gets upset and gets emotional and just reacts in the time and space in front of someone directly, the deal blows up because emotions fly, especially when you got alpha dogs like Rodgers and Khan and Tomlin on the Pittsburgh side going at it and negotiating, right? If someone gets emotional and says, listen, Aaron, you're not the same guy. The future isn't the same with you here. Rodgers is going to get pissed. The deal is going to blow up. What you can do instead is be smart, be cunning about it. Leak a report to a media that is obviously false and is obviously not true, just to kind of kick it in Rodgers' head. Holy smokes, the Steelers may go away from me and then may turn it completely over to a guy like Jalen Milrow in the first round. Okay, let me recalibrate. Let's get to the negotiating table. This is tactic negotiation stuff. The first rule of any negotiation is attention. You got to get the other guy's attention. If the deal's not moving according to your pace, you got to go out there and get them recalibrated, focused, and say, hey, let's get back to the table. That's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers did here. There's a lot of people on social media, there's a lot of Steelers fans that are freaking out. Oh my God, what's going on? This organization's falling apart. Trust me, they're not taking Jalen Milrow in the first round. This is a clear negotiating tactic. Everyone in any organization has seen it at some point in time. This is a smart move by the Steelers. It'll bring Rodgers and Pittsburgh together where they agree to a deal. I think they will, but they'll agree to a deal or not in a few coming days and weeks. And then the Steelers will go into the draft with a clear vision of what their roster is and what they need to do. This is just a smart decision by the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Miles, I'll throw a question to you to kind of wrap this one up here. Let's say the Steelers don't get a chance to draft Jalen Milrow with their third round pick. Like Milrow's gone, right? Obviously, Pittsburgh doesn't have a second round pick. Do you want Pittsburgh to maybe go a different quarterback in the third or fourth round, right? Maybe a Jackson Dart, a Quinn Ewers, or do you just sit there and say, hey, we'll punt a year, right? Let's say they get Rodgers. Do you still want them to go quarterback in the third or fourth round if Milrow is not available? Or is it Milrow or bust as your developmental guy long term?
I think there's a couple of names that kind of stand out. We've heard rumors of teams starting to look at Kyle McCord. I'm not really sold on that one. I don't think it's anything special there. Obviously, and I'll say this, I'm not too familiar with him, but the kid out of Louisville, Tyler Show, has been getting a lot of praise lately, kind of creeping up draft boards a little bit. That's one that's really interesting to me in a way. But I would say if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't love a lot of these other guys. I feel like, Jalen Miller is the one that fits the play style, fits the build, fits, the Pittsburgh Steelers really well. And, or some of the guys that are going to go before him, most likely. So I think that if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, if Miller's not there in an ideal position, a favorable draft spot for us, I think you go a different direction because, as we said, this quarterback draft class, there's a lot of intrigue there, but I think that there's going to be a lot better draft class next year. I think the next few years, even potentially, we're going to see more talented quarterbacks come out. So I'm always a believer if your guy's not there, just don't go and rush it. I think the Chicago Bears, they did a really great, job of a few years ago. They had the number 1 overall pick, and they were like, okay, well, we aren't wowed by anyone. We're going to trade out of the number 1 pick. We're going to go down, and they ended up, getting lucky again. Carolina Panthers trade them, and then they get another number 1 pick there. They weren't, wowed by, Bryce Young. So they get the quarterback that they want by waiting. I think that's the route you go here if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wait it out, wait for the right guy to come. So if Miller is not there, I would say go to that position.